zone.
Greetings, fellow fright fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for another episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and today's video is the long-awaited review of the new movie Blair Witch. But before I talk about the new film, which I just saw today, my wife and I both went and saw it. Here's our tickets. They look kind of funny, but very small printing right there says Blair Witch. There you go, right there. So yeah, we went and saw it today finally after several weeks of, we were planning to go see it and something came up, just didn't have the chance to go see it. But wanted to talk a little bit about the Blair Witch Project and what that film meant to me growing up, as well as my thoughts on the first sequel to Blair Witch, which was almost not really a sequel, but more of a sequel in theory because it took place outside of the world that the original Blair Witch set up. But Blair Witch Project came out in 1999. I was in film school at the time. I was going to San Francisco State, and I had a friend named Cindy Kennard. We were both, we grew up together, and we started talking about this movie because I started noticing posters around the school, especially in the film department. And the poster that I have in the room, I'll show it right now. So this poster right here, that poster was all over my school. It was everywhere. And I was fascinated by what is this Blair Witch, and again, found footage was not big in the 90s. Now, you had reality shows like The Real World, but nothing like we have now. So Blair Witch was a really new type of horror film in the fact that it was all going to be done, as almost like a documentary. And for the longest time, I kept wanting to see this film, and all through summer you would just hear, little bits about it. And then there was this fake documentary that came out where it interviewed family members and, relations of the three people in the film. You had Josh, Mike, and Heather, and saying that, they had gone missing. And at this point it was 5 years earlier because they were supposedly had gone missing in the fall of 1994, and then you're in 1999. And this documentary talked about, that no one could ever find them. Here's the footage, the legend about Rustin Parr and the town of Blair and what happened, how it became Burkittsville, and then the whole thing about the Blair Witch. So, and I kept going. I remember, the internet wasn't what it is now. But I kept going, I'd never heard of this before, but I kept thinking that it was real because that documentary really sold it, that this was a real story. Now, of course, as the movie, got closer to release, you kind of started to figure out that it wasn't a true story. I don't remember how I initially found out that it wasn't a true story. But the Blair Witch Project, I still think, is one of the scariest movies ever made. And I think it scared me so much. I still remember the first time I saw it, and I still remember the feeling I had after I saw it. I mean, this movie terrified me. And a lot of people look at it now as a joke because there's been so many found footage movies and, spoofs of this. But going back to 1999, that summer when there was nothing like it that existed, my memory is just, I still remember how I felt walking out of that theater after seeing this. My heart was pounding. And one thing about me is, and I said it in other videos before, I don't like to be lost. And so the fear of being lost is what really played into my overall reaction to this film. It terrified me. The idea of not being able to find your way home, the idea of not being able to get out of a secluded area and find your vehicle or find your car where you left it, and that something is in the woods that you can't see that's tormenting you at night. It just freaked me the fuck out. And I still remember that night. I was still living at home at the time, going to school, but I remember I had to put my garbage cans out that night, and I still remember being freaked out about putting my garbage cans out on the curb because I kept hearing that sound, the scene in the film where Josh is calling for help and the sounds around them at night when they just felt like there was something surrounding them, but they couldn't see it. And a lot of people just thought the movie was a joke because you don't see anything. It's all, it's all about, what you think you see. But it really worked for me, and and now that the new movie has come out, a lot of people are saying that it's not a classic film, that it's not a good film, that it was all built around hype and marketing and things like that. And yeah, I think the marketing had a lot to do with how people initially viewed the film. But I still think, we watched it a few weeks ago when we thought we were going to see the new film the next day, and it still freaks me out. So, and it freaks my wife out. We both, again, kids of the 80s and 90s, this is when we grew up. So we have a really, a really strong connection to this film because it plays into the fears we had then, that we still have now, and I think that's why this film holds up so well for me. So I absolutely love the Blair Witch Project, and it's still terrifying to this day. And another thing that I really think is strong about this film is that the people in this film do not seem like actors. They seem like they're really going through it, and I know that they were actually filming, they were doing the filming, and the filmmakers, the directors and everything were the ones that were sort of messing with them and making them afraid and making the sounds and everything at night. So, but I really thought that Heather, Josh, and Mike all felt genuine. They felt like they were real people to me. I didn't look at these people as like they're playing it up for the camera. Obviously, there's scenes where they're supposed to be acting because they're shooting a documentary, but when they're afraid, I felt like they were really afraid. And this film, to me, is still one of the scariest movies ever made. Blair Witch 2, and I'm not going to talk very long about this film, and I just recently did a video where I said I picked it up, I found it cheap. I've only watched this film twice in the last, it came out 16 years ago. I've watched it twice in 16 years, and it just doesn't work for me. I know there's a director's cut, and the director has talked about, that they wanted him to put in more things like gore or whatever it is. I thought this was just such a missed opportunity because, for me personally, I wanted to know what happened to Heather. I'm not ruining anything. People have seen the Blair Witch Project by now. I'll put spoilers in the title or in the body of this video. But at the end of this film, you don't know what happens to Heather, and I wanted the sequel to pick up to tell us what happened and to carry on the story. This one, of course, in this world, it's our world. The movie is a movie, and these people go to where. It really kind of took place in terms of what was really going on at the time, where people were flooding to this town, where the movie was, depicted as taking place, and people were really going there, and it was driving the townspeople crazy. So that kind of plays into this film, but it's just the acting in this is terrible. The direction is okay, but there's just nothing about this film that I found very interesting. It's just not a film that I plan to watch very much or revisit anytime soon. I bought it because I'm a completist, but yeah, it was worth the $3 I paid for it. Let's just put it that way. And that's all I want to talk about with that one. But with this film, again, I thought this movie was going to be The Woods. I had seen a trailer for it, I'm going to say in late spring. Said it was going to be the scariest horror film ever made. And it was directed by Adam Weingart and written by Simon Barrett, who have done two fantastic films, You're Next and The Guest, two films that I absolutely fucking love. These films are terrific, and I love both these guys. They've done The Guest blew me away. I loved You're Next, though. You're Next was really, really a great film. But these guys were going to be involved in the new Blair Witch movie, and I was just so excited to see this film. When they announced it at Comic-Con this past summer, I was like, I can't believe we're finally going to get some, picking up the story from the film that came out 17 years ago and scared the crap out of me. And it was going to be picking up with Heather's brother. He was going to be going into the woods to look for her. Footage that shows that his sister might still be alive in the woods. So with his girlfriend, who's a documentarian, and his friends, they go to meet these people that pointed him to the footage, and they go into the woods to see if they can find if Heather is still alive. In the cast, you have James Allen McCune as James. You have Kaylee Hernandez as Lisa. You have Corbin Reed as Ashley. You have Brandon Scott as Peter. You have Wes Robinson as Lane, and then you have Valerie Curry as Talia. The movie was written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Weingart. What do I think about it? Now, my wife and I, we got out of the movie and we thought about it. We were talking about it because both of us were huge fans of the original Blair Witch Project. And I've heard rumors about this film, and I didn't read any spoilers or anything. I wanted to go into this film fresh. I didn't want anybody tainting my appreciation, or if I wasn't going to like the film, sort of skewing me anyway. I wanted to sort of judge it on its own. I was a little bit disappointed in this film, and it's hard for me to say that because I went into this completely like I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I know the film has done okay at the box office for its budget. It only cost $5 million to make. It's made almost $20 million, but I really think there was some missed opportunities with this film. I really do agree with some people that say it is almost like a remake of the first film. Because there are similar beats. There's a lot of beats that happen in this film that play out exactly like they played out in the first Blair Witch Project. And I know that you have to sort of make things a little bit familiar and bring them to a new audience, because again, you're going back to, people that might be seeing this film weren't born yet when the first one came out. And found footage is so much different now, because found footage has taken on a life of its own in horror, whereas back in 1999, Blair Witch was the first of its kind. The Blair Witch Project was the first of its kind. But there was just so many things in this film that I felt like they were great ideas that just didn't play out well. One being that it was like a little too familiar in spots. Another thing was that, they have so much more technology. I did think the camera usage in this film was great, because they all have like little cameras that they can put here in their ear. They also have, a drone. The drone they didn't really do much with the drone, which I thought was a complete missed opportunity. I mean, they showcase it, and there's a couple points where they have it, go up and sort of you see the vastness of the Black Hills Forest. But that's it. I mean, it's almost like I felt like if the drone could have picked up something else as it was hovering above the forest, that would have been so much eerier than just seeing the same thing maybe once during the day and once at night. I just felt like the drone, they just didn't use it enough, and it was kind of like, what was the point of having it anyway? The other thing was the characters. Now, I really liked some of the actors in it, particularly James, played by James Allen McCune, did a really good job. I really liked him, and I understood what he was going through. If you're a young child and your sister goes missing and there's no closure for you in your life, that you would want to, if you see an opportunity where you could have answers to those questions, that you would take that opportunity. So I really liked him a lot. Sometimes I felt like the narrative deviated a little bit from him, because the whole initial point of the film is that he's going out there to look for his sister. But there's a lot of times where it jumps back and forth between not only the character of Lisa, who's played by Kaylee Hernandez, who is doing the documentary, but also Ashley and Peter, played by Brandon Scott and Corbin Reed. I really just wanted the focus to be on James. I wanted it to be his quest, and sometimes I felt like the purpose of them being out there, I felt like the purpose for them being out there was kind of lost every once in a while. And then the character of Lane and Talia, she wasn't as irritating, but I really didn't think Lane was that strong. His character just didn't really. And I think this is just because of what the first one meant to me, and how the actors were so good in that film is because they didn't come off like they were acting. A lot of the people in this film felt like they were acting. And I guess it's just because I've always said in a lot of videos in the past where I've reviewed found footage style movies, especially found footage horror film, the actors were coming off too much like acting. And I feel like if you're going to have a movie like that, what is the point of making it found footage? This should have just been a normal film, not a documentary or found footage style film. I think it would have worked better, because the gimmick of what made the first one work was the fact that you thought it was real. You thought these people really went missing. Again, because it felt authentic and it felt like it could really have happened. Whereas in this one, I feel like they tried to expand on the mythos, which some of it really works. Especially with I don't want to get into too many spoilers, because I do want people to check it out for themselves. But there is some elements to the Blair Witch mythos that are explained or expanded upon in this film that I think some work and some don't. I do think the film gets scarier as it goes. For the beginning of it, and towards the end of it, there's just very familiar beats. You know what's going to happen a little bit. And that's what made it a little bit disappointing for my wife and I. And we talked about it pretty much all the way home, after we had seen it. It just felt like a missed opportunity to us, that they could have done more. They could have explained more. Whereas with the ending of the film, even though there were some really, really powerful moments that are really, really unnerving and scary, and ones that really made us jump, I felt like there's more questions now than answers. And I was hoping that we would have more answers than questions. And I think that's what the disappointing part of the film came from. But I still don't think it's a bad film at all. I think it has gotten a lot of hate unfairly, but I do think that they marketed it like it was going to change the face of horror, and it didn't. It is a beat by beat retelling of the first film, just with a couple of new bells and whistles based on technology, and of course you have different characters, but pretty much it is the same. There is so many things that are similar in this film, I mean, all the way through, that it was a little disappointing because we've seen this film before, and it just didn't impact me like I wanted to. So if I had to give the film a rating on my scale, I would give it 3 skulls. So yeah, Three Skulls. Still, like I said, still a positive rating. Still a movie I will definitely own. Still a movie I want to watch again. And it is a movie that has left me with lots of questions that I keep thinking about and sort of thinking, I want to watch it again. Maybe watch Blair Witch Project with it again, and watch them back to back. I think that would be kind of fun to watch them back to back. But in the end, it just didn't. It just didn't do it for me like I was hoping it would. And maybe I psyched myself too much up for it. But again, being as much of a big fan as the original as I was, I went into this thinking it was going to blow me away like the first one did, and it just didn't. If you guys have seen it, please leave thoughts in the comment section below. Would love to hear what everybody else thinks of the film. Please no spoilers, because there are some people that may have not have seen it and want to go see it. And again, I'm always going to do spoiler-free reviews here. I really want people just to watch the film and judge it for themselves. So again, thanks so much everyone for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Stay scared.